Hey everyone. I am waiting a hot second to see if anybody else tunes in because I don't do a lot of streams anymore. I really don't. Here is hoping that we get some people tuning in. If there's anybody in the chat, feel free to say hi if you could. Just to confirm that you can hear me. Ari's here. Hello, Ari. It's good to see you. It almost feels surreal doing a live stream that's not restitching the tapestry. just trying to process that. I don't know if you feel the same way, but Scott's here. Hello, Scott. It's good to see you. It's wonderful to see you. I don't know, like, Lagiacris is here. Hello. It's good to see you. I almost didn't do a stream today. But I decided to do so because honestly, there's been so many things happening. I don't know about you, but I feel like 2025 has lasted a decade so far, and we're only on January 19th. It feels like we've been navigating this constant onslaught of major political upheaval for years. I mean, I guess technically have for years, but it has felt especially exasperated here at the beginning of 2025. And before I get into all of that, though, like, I do want to pose the question of, are you doing what you can to take care of yourself? Are you hydrating yourself? Are you enriching? Are you eating? Are you staying healthy, both mentally and physically? I feel like we have to ask ourselves that, especially, and remind ourselves that as we navigate these times, because I've had moments where I've been neglecting myself in some ways. Like, I've been forgetting to drink water. I've been trying to drink water. I know, water in a wine glass. That's classy. Ari says it's been a mess. It's been an absolute mess. And I've had moments where I have felt like a mess myself as a result of everything going on. Ari says, I have not been hydrating, no, and I've been eating really poorly. I'm sorry about that. It's an interesting place we're at because I have these moments where I get really down on myself for not taking care of myself sometimes, but then I have these other moments where I am like, I need to grant myself grace because there is a lot going on and things have been very heavy. Lagiacra says, I am hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. That's very much the headspace I'm in also. But obviously, the most recent major event that happened, I'm just going to jump right in. I don't know how long I'm going to stream, everyone, so just bear with me. But the most significant event that happened in the last couple of days is, well, TikTok was banned for how many hours was it? 12 to 14 hours-ish. Banned for 12 to 14 hours. It was before the ban. So the ban was intended to start today. It started 2 hours early last night. And obviously it caused a lot of upheaval. The ban was here in the United States strictly. I know a lot of friends who use that for making ends meet, who use it for an escape, and obviously it caused a lot of turmoil. But I've also, like, I'm going to talk about how I navigated the ban and everything, but I have found, like, throughout this whole ordeal, I've been really having to explain to some people who don't use TikTok why TikTok is important, and I just wanted to share a couple of statistics, because I feel like statistics are the most, like, straightforward, in-your-face type of thing that you can share that's kind of sobering, right? And the statistics from Reuters specifically, and I don't know if you were aware of this, but TikTok contributed over $24 billion to the GDP. I think it was last year. It was either 2022 or last year, or 2023 or last year. I still think it's 2024. And contributes 224,000 plus jobs to our economy. So on an economic level, I mean, beyond just the social level, on an economic level, TikTok has had a huge influence on the economy because it's given people access to products. It's given businesses the opportunity to mobilize in ways they weren't able to before, to share their product, etc. David is here. Hello, David, my dear friend, my talking toku friend. Man, I was shocked it came as quick as it did. I was never on TikTok, but it was still surprising. Yes, it was very surprising. Ari says it feels like a political maneuver because Trump took it away only to give it back. Yes, I'm going to be talking about that here in a second because it gives me really icky vibes, very icky vibes. So, how I handled the TikTok ban, you probably saw me posting on like social media yesterday, but I literally spent the better part of Friday and yesterday trying to back up all of my TikTok videos. And I discovered that I had made more content on TikTok than I anticipated. I've literally made like 400 videos thereabouts. But like just going through all of those memories and saving them, I did so because we really didn't know what the ban would entail. Would it entail like the complete wipeout of all American user data? Was it going to just boot us off, its servers and just keep our information existing in the ether? Like, it could have been anything. It was just this very nebulous, we don't know kind of space. So I spent all day trying to back up my work, and I thankfully did. And then as I was going through, I was trying to save some of my collections on there. I was saving my recipes. Ari's like, I love how you're a digital archivist. I try to be. I don't like losing my stuff. But I had so many collections. I had a whole collection of just recipes. I had a collection for Drag Race clips. So many, like I had a collection for Godzilla clips. Like so many different things. And so I was like a quarter of the way through saving my recipes, and bam, I got the notification that it was leaving, that it was shut down. And the notifications were very strange because in the notifications, they were essentially kind of like hearkening to Trump and being like, he's our only hope. And it really didn't feel, it felt very ominous to me. And it did not sit well at all. And to me, that was like the first indication of like, there's some back end stuff happening that we are clearly unaware of that's pretty unsettling. Henshin John is here. Hello, my friend. Hey, Donny, I hope you are doing well. I don't use TikTok due to a lot of the criticism I have with the platform, especially how they've been propping up, yes, Trump during this, but I'm still opposed to the ban. Absolutely. Like, I don't like what they've been doing either with treating him like a knight at this point. But my gripe is that bipartisanly, both political parties in Congress made the decision that they thought that it was important to remove the app, ban the app for national security reasons. Very much kind of, I would argue personally, overlooking the fact that 170 million Americans use it. That's literally half of our country's population, by the way. Use this app as a form of expression, free speech, press, so many different things, business, commerce, and just the ramifications itself of removing that outlet, I think personally changes the internet forever. I think it changes the internet forever because it shows that at a certain point, people in power, people who have political power, wealth, privilege, people who reflect very oligarchic perspectives, they are the people who, when it comes to push and shove, can make the decision on our behalf without really considering our collective well-being, right? And that to me is what I found very demoralizing and very frustrating. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but because there's a lot to unpack, let's just say. Lucky Acra says, yeah, the ban was suspicious. I was only really active on Discord, YouTube, and stream. I use TikTok for friends, never posted on there. It's really funny, because at this point, like, I'm trying to scale back. Well, I'm going to first say another way that I dealt with the ban is I was just like, I'm done. I'm done with these extraneous social media apps. Like, well, to a certain extent, Meta, but I'm in the process of getting ready to step away from Twitter or X, whatever. I call it Twitter out of rebellion. I'm getting ready to step away from Twitter because again, Elon Musk is a very problematic person. I don't like what he's done with the platform, and I just ethically struggle with it. I deleted my Threads account through Meta. I don't really use it, and frankly, if there's any way I can kind of pull back my Meta usage, I'm going to try to. That's the way I'm going to do so, and I'm going to strive to scale back my use of Facebook and Instagram unless it's to promote Growing Up with Godzilla or my writing career. Truthfully, I mean, obviously there's a lot of memories and connections I have, and I keep those for that reason. But I like, the unfortunate thing is these tools sustain us, especially if we are artists, writers, creators, and it's a really hard decision to make. But I deleted Threads, and I'm like, I'm done at least with that. But at the end of the day, like, what I find very unsettling is Meta's influence in all of this, like Facebook and Instagram, because you can find sources on this, by the way, but like there is a stream of documentation that shows that Meta was literally paying Congress people and lobbying them to support the TikTok ban. Because clearly, who is the biggest competition when it comes to social media, right? And this realization that rich tech bro oligarchs own most of the social media apps, to me, is just, it's so late stage capitalistic dystopian feeling, and I don't like Ready Player One terrifying kind of thing. It's funny because Ari and I were messaging it at one point. Ari, I hope it's okay that I share this, but we were like, wow. At this point, it's kind of alarming that YouTube seems to be less problematic. YouTube / Google. Google is problematic. But the fact that it is, at this point, seemingly less problematic than Meta and Twitter is just kind of wild. Like, that was not on any year's bingo card for me. Couple more comments. Lagiakra says, I deleted my Twitter after the election. I still have Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat because in real life friends, but I'm not too active on there. Let's see. Ari says, it's hard to participate in reading legacy media right now too because Bezos owns WAPO, which was traditionally a leftist Medusa source too. Yeah, and they're buying up newspapers too. Honestly, we need our anti-capitalist kaiju Mothra more than ever. Mothra, save us. Mothra, please save us. But no, Ari, I completely agree with you. I think that's what's really become oligarchic, is the fact that these, like, obviously there's power and money, and these people in power, what better way can they get their way than by buying out these different forms of media? And that's what is making me feel really unsettled about TikTok, because TikTok, like, the notification, I want to read for you the notification that I got from TikTok when it was reestablished. I'm not going to share it on here because I don't want to glorify like the image itself, but it says, "Welcome back. Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the US! Exclamation point. You can continue to create, share, and discover all the things you love on TikTok. And of course, the irony here is this message was shared a day before his inauguration. So to me, it screams narcissistic. I'm going to withhold this, but then give it back to you so I can portray myself as a hero. At least that's my interpretation. Chaos! Hello, Chaos. Chaos says, I am a private person, so I don't really use any social media unless you count Discord. I feel, isn't Discord one of the only remaining small scale, like privately owned, what is the wording I'm thinking of? Similar to Blue Sky, like it is, I can't think of the wording. Decentralized media. That's what I'm thinking of. I think that is the correct term. David says, Trump being a narcissist too, would have thought. Well, apparently 52% of America who decided to bring this to fruition yet again, right? You know, I'm trying to make jest out of it and laugh because I'm going to be honest, my mental health has been all over the place the last couple of months as a result. And I've been really struggling with some anxiety a lot. And I think what has really been difficult are like all the adjacent conversations. Like, because Britt and I are getting married this year, and I know I've mentioned this, but the Supreme Court a couple years ago mentioned re-examining the marriage equality legislation. And I've had many people asking, like, Donny, are you guys gonna go to the courthouse? Are you gonna go get married as soon as possible and then hold a ceremony later? And it's been, we don't know. We don't know yet. It's really hard to gauge. Like, part of me doesn't want to react out of complete fear because, I mean, you know me, I try my best to be like a measured person, but simultaneously, I don't want my need to be measured to put me in a sense of denial where I'm just kind of disregarding reality for what it actually is. Does that make sense? So we're supposed to be getting married in November, and I'm super excited, and I know 2025 is going to be a great year. I am not letting anything prevent me from being happy and excited about it. But there is always that worry that lingers in the back of the mind, right? Chaos says, hi, Donny. I also agree that we need Mothra more than ever, and Batra too. Mothra, Batra, Rodan, Godzilla, all of them. We need them. RP's here. Hello, RP. Rogue Agent, it's good to see you, Rogue Agent. I believe in you. I believe in you too. Ari says Reddit got gutted recently too because they sniped all of the bots which made up the app, unless it's their bots that make it searchable in Google. Yeah, I heard about that. And yes, TikTok is back now after just a few hours. And Gamera, yes, we need Gamera in that. We need Gamera in that mix too, 1000%. I mean, in a nutshell, like, that's the whole TikTok debacle. Those are my worries surrounding the political ramifications of what's been happening between the election and now. The other thing I wanted to talk about are Democrats. And when the TikTok ban, actually leading up to the TikTok ban, I've been so upset at Democrats. And mind you, I'm a liberal. And I just, the Democrats willfully ignoring the fact that they used TikTok for 4 to 6 years as a platform to promote activism, election campaigning, awareness with regard to social issues, so many grassroots efforts. The fact that they were so willing to kind of turn away from that and just go bipartisanly with Republicans and be like, nope, we're done. We're done with TikTok. National security, like, it really was, I was just disheartened completely, because the frustration is that we continually get these promises, but then like they don't follow through with them, and then, or they ignore, like, they tell us the promises prior to the election, but then when the election happens, it's like they forget about, you know, equality, protecting us, making sure that we have access to all of our freedoms, etc. So I really think, and with what happened now that TikTok is essentially promoting Trump, I really view it as a pretty significant blow to the Democrats, because they really mishandled this. At least that's, mind you, you're free to disagree with me, obviously. That's just my own opinion, significantly. Okay. Arpy says, I'm scared, but I'm trying to be positive. That's kind of where I am as well. Thank you, Rogue. I appreciate you. And Waterchop says this is a manipulation tactic. I agree. Why are we letting these assholes manipulate us? That's the question of the century. It's because we depend so much on these outlets. And I think what I find really frustrating, Waterchop, is that if you go on like TikTok, there's so many people like praising him, like he's our savior now. And it's just like, no, this is this is literally a manipulation tactic, like you were saying. It's literally them just taking something away to give it back to kind of shape our thinking, and to a certain extent. Lagiacris, that would be a very long answer, and honestly could be its own separate video. But like, I would be happy to talk with you about it at some point, because I think that it is an interesting topic to explore. Now, I think when it comes to, I'm trying to find like the name of the person who I remember studying, who was very much an anarchist, and I cannot think of off the top of my head. What is the name of that philosopher? Was it Foucault? Foucault? Was it Foucault? I can't find it. I will think of it later. But essentially, I mean, I think that there is a certain aspect regarding the philosophy, obviously, like the absolving of authority. I think though, when it comes to our democracy, some institutions are incredibly important, especially when it comes to protecting marginalized communities, because clearly the powers that be at this point, especially the powers that be that we are expecting, aren't really caring about sustaining protections for the LGBTQ plus community. Let's see. Oh, I'm missing some comments here. Ari says, how do you feel about the inauguration? Dissociative and numb, let's just say. Let's see. Yes, Henshin, I definitely agree with you 100%. Yeah, I agree with you. It is being held indoors. I heard that too. RP misses my lives. I know, maybe I should do live streams more often. I do, I feel you at Chaos. Waterchop says, I deleted Instagram and TikTok a long time ago, and I turned off the algorithm on YouTube. Chaos asks, how do you do that? I'm kind of curious too. How does one do that? 2025 is about going outside and touching grass. Yes. Scott says, I'm a proud Democrat, but I've never been as pissed at so many Dems as I've been since the election. There's the TikTok issue, but there's other things too. Yes, 1000% agree with you. Ari says, yeah, I turned off my video history on Google, so my algorithm is strange on YouTube now. Okay. I'm glad that you exist as well, Rogue. But And mind you, by the way, I know that a lot of this is doom and gloom right now. I don't want you to get lost in that, my friends. Probably the latter portion of this stream, I will be talking about how we can find ways to show up even when we are at our most powerless. So I encourage you to stick around until then if you're able. All right. And I'm going to be sharing like what we have to look ahead to, like especially tomorrow. But it's been noted via multiple sources that Trump plans to at least sign 100 executive orders on day one, ranging on a variety of different things. Some things impacting the LGBTQ plus community, especially, of course, because of my expertise and identity. Like I tend to really focus in on that because it's what I can speak to the most. Rogue says I never had TikTok. Fair. Ari says you just have to go to your Google account and turn off search and video history. Won't save anything. Okay. Chaos says I've got time. I don't turn in until midnight. I won't be streaming until midnight because my sleepy time is sometimes before midnight. So Water Trap shares some good ones. Volunteer, pick up trash and vote, even though they undermine our votes in Missouri. Ooh, Missouri. I lived there for 2 years. Yeah. Missouri is kind of very rough, let's just say. And Lagiakris, I will definitely let you know. But so recently, I don't know if all of you are aware of this. I am a member of PFLAG, which is Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. It's an LGBTQ plus nonprofit that's existed since the 70s that promotes education, advocacy, and support for not only people in the LGBTQ plus community, but those who are allies. And we had like a pretty huge call to action that happened a few days ago because I think it was the House of Representatives passed House Bill 28, which is the protection of women and girls in sports, which obviously is a piece of legislation that is significantly going to impact the trans community. And that is going to the Senate, I think, next. And if it passes the Senate, we know that because of his platform, Trump is likely going to pass that. So that is something to be concerned about. I did mention marriage equality. That was another thing to consider too, because we know that the Supreme Court has been on this trajectory. In general, if I were to kind of think about it from like the root of the human perspective here, in my many conversations with other LGBTQ plus people, a lot of people are very much battening down the hatches. There is a lot of fear. There is a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of anger. All of the feelings are justified because in the LGBTQ plus community, we're kind of at this point where we feel that it seems like every 4 years we have to worry about what's coming down the road because we might have a person who's very progressive, who supports, our community with our access to rights and protections. And then like the next election cycle, it is completely reversed. And just that back and forth, it is so exhausting. And I've noticed this exhaustion especially manifesting in the older generation of the LGBTQ plus community, the older generations, plural, who literally had to deal with this in the 80s and 90s with the AIDS crisis as well, and the mishandling of that. Let's see. Let's see. Waterchop says, it's good to see people talking more about anarchism. Kill your lawn, grow food, pick up trash, be a good neighbor, and share with people. I'm literally writing a whole book of poems about this, and I'm pretty excited. Like the whole, this ideal solar punk future. Rogue says that Rogue's writing a horror story that has trans representation in it. Love that. Ari, I do agree that 100 executive orders is wild. Lagiakra says, ever since the election, I've been reaching out to both my internet and in real life friends to let them know that they can come to me. I've lost people along the way, though. Nothing of value was lost. So Yeah, I get that. Captain Gokai is here. One of my newer friends from TikTok. We were connected through TikTok. Hello, it's good to see you. Arpy, he didn't do anything with marriage equality his last term. We'll be pissed if he does. Yes. Again, I'm not worried about him with it. It's the Supreme Court that he's established, because he largely established who we have now in the Supreme Court. Very conservative leaning justices during his last term. So, but at the end of the day, like, of course, a lot of LGBTQ plus people are feeling uncertain. They're feeling afraid. And I know it's not just the LGBTQ plus community. There are many other marginalized communities who feel this way as well. Considering what happened with Roe versus Wade, a lot of women are feeling this way as well. So many of these things impact multiple groups of people, and I don't think the intersectionality of it is discussed enough. But yeah, those are just my thought. Cass, yes, exactly. Disabled people as well. Like, they intersectionally are impacted in so many ways by this, all the different legislation that we're seeing. And that's not to also say that individual states aren't also enacting their own bits of legislation. The LGBTQ plus community, the disabled communities, like, they have all been navigating legislation from different states, especially conservative states. Chaos. I know Missouri, for example. Oh wait, you said you used to live in Missouri. Waterchap lives in Missouri. That's been all over the place. In higher education, many of us are worried in higher education because in so many different states, there is legislation targeting books and curriculum and so on, and like, literally LGBTQ plus people being able to exist in these spaces. I am very privileged in that I live in Michigan, which is very much considered a democratic safe harbor right now, though there are still issues in Michigan and people who try to circumvent these things in Michigan. And Lagiakris, you definitely understand the multi-marginalized intersectionality of it all. Absolutely. And see, Henshin, this is actually going to be one of my recommendations for the ways we show up. Supporting creators who are LGBTQ plus or in marginalized communities, and who also showcase representation, because that representation is important. I don't blame you, Chaos. And Chaos, only ever share what you're comfortable with, for sure. Ari says, I am so horrified how we've sold out our government to the highest bidder. It very much does feel like one large transaction. But so I want to shift gears a little bit here, because a lot of this, it's so hard to process, my friends. It's like I said before, our feelings are valid. Our feelings of fear, our feelings of hesitation, anger, sadness, all of those things are valid. But as a teacher, I will never forget, like, it was after election day. I felt like 2016 again, but like on steroids. I felt very dejected. I felt very low. And the day after, I, of course, had to work. And at that time, I had a class that had a lot of LGBTQ plus and other marginalized students. And I remember, like, honestly, that whole evening, I just had them just work on stuff. We didn't do anything extensive. I was just like, hey, let's turn on some lo-fi relaxing music and do some writing, right? And that whole day, I thought, I don't even want to do this anymore. In the sense of, like, I don't want to be an activist. I don't want to have to talk politics. I just am so exhausted. I'm so dejected. And when I had my students were asking questions, and they came to me with their fears, and when I saw that they were kind of looking for some sort of nugget of hope from me, like that kind of, it made me kind of reassess myself and be like, there are people who are kind of depending on some sort of synergy here. And I hope that I was able to be of support, but it made me realize that for me, one way I work through this fear and this uncertainty is this right here. What we're doing right now, or teaching, or writing, or doing something that enriches, that where there is some sort of exchange that's created, an exchange of empathy between groups of people, where we're able to kind of remind ourselves that we are on the same page, experiencing these scenes in real time, and that we're doing it together in the best way that we can, right? And from that whole experience, when I felt super powerless, I reminded myself, and thankfully my therapist, bless her soul, reminded me that I need to grant myself the grace and find ways to show up in which I'm able, and that I can't always pressure myself to be that go-to person if I can't be in that moment. But when we are able to, I think it's important that we do show up. When we do reach that point where we're able to talk about it, showing up is important. Because, and I say that because there are some people where they do get past that sense of defeat and they just kind of check out. And I understand in some instances checking out is necessary. But if we have the privilege to be able to check in, so many people benefit from that. People who we can be allies to, you know. I want to check on a couple of comments here before I go into my list of ways that we can show up, even if we're feeling powerless. Let's see. Lagiacris. Oh, RP asks if Lagiacris is on Blue Sky. RP said, or Ari, I am so dyslexic tonight. I apologize. Ari says, you just got to keep going. And I meditate and I write and I live as well as I can. That's all you can do. Waterchap says, I represent the queers in St. Louis, Missouri. The city is rough and Missouri is oppressive, but you are seen here. That's a beautiful statement. Chaos is trying to get back into writing, keyword trying. It's difficult since my will to create died a horrible death back in 2023. And all you can do is try, my friend. You know, take small steps. That's all you can do. Sometimes we short circuit ourselves because we place a pressure that we need to take big steps or measure up to other people's output, right? But our outputs are different. RP says, do your best to take time for yourself. My mom and sister have dyslexia, so I get that done. Yeah, it gets especially bad if I'm like writing on a whiteboard while I'm teaching, like it. But anyway, you find ways to navigate through. But anyway, my list. The first thing is to, like I mentioned, grant yourself grace. I don't think we do that enough. We live in a society where we are very much expected to criticize ourselves for either doing too much or not doing enough. And I think that we need to grant ourselves the grace when we show up and are able to do what we can humanly, reasonably do in a given moment. One thing that I've been doing lately that I used to find super duper intimidating, but I quickly got over it because I did a lot of volunteer work, especially in 2020 during the 2020 election, where I did phone baking. You have to be like a very poised person to do phone baking, but emailing I think is super effective. So I just wanted to share this here. If you are a person who wants to, if you feel that you're ready, that you're at a point where you want to exercise your right to express your concerns to politicians, this link right here will show you who your Congress people are, your senators and representatives. And over the past couple of weeks, I've been using this link. Basically, you go into this link, you type in your zip code, and it will show you who your Congress people are. And I've been using, there's like a little button that says contact. If you click contact, it brings you to an email form where you can like send them an email and type a response that like establishes your concern. Additionally, I mean, there are phone numbers as well. You can call their offices. Usually you'll just get an answering machine. Once in a while I'll get an email back. Once in a while I'll get a call back. I prefer emailing because I don't always want to talk to somebody, let's just say. But I will have this link after the video is done. I will have this link in the description section. So if you want to go and exercise your concerns to your legislation, please do so. There is also another link. I'll have to go find this, but I think there are links for state legislations too, where you can literally find your state Congress people. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that millennials and Gen Z were kind of afraid to just talk to people. And we have a variety of different reasons we probably feel that way. Probably because we experience a life-altering historical event every 5 minutes. But we have to share our frustrations and concerns, because we have to be heard. We if we have a voice, we have to do what we can to exercise it if we are in the headspace to do so. Let's see. I just want to look at the comments really. RP thinks I should do more lives. Merlin Public Media, hello, my friend. It's good to see you. Ari says, whenever I call my senator, I'll get an aide that answers. And then I'll be like, hi, I have a comment for a person. And jumped into my script. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned script. I've had moments where I've thought about writing up scripts that people can use. Ari, that could be something we collaborate on. Look at me trying to find another excuse for Ari and I to do writing together or do a project together. But sometimes people find it a little bit more comforting having a script to work with, right? I will often, like, if I'm talking on the phone, have a script. So, another thing you could do that's very simple and straightforward, supporting creators in marginalized communities, like I mentioned earlier, supporting their work, following them on social media. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. Simply following and engaging with the content of people in marginalized communities lifts them to the forefront. And we can criticize these algorithms across social media until the end of time, but the truth is, like there has to be that engagement for people to have exposure. That's why it's important to support creators in marginalized communities through the simple ways of liking, subscribing, sharing. If you're watching this right now, if you care to give me a like on this video, that even would help me. Like, I will go and like your stuff. Like, it's designed to just be a very, very simple form of support, I would say. Sharing their work on other social outlets, if you can. Like, that really will elevate voices in various communities. Safety and mental health permitting. This is an interesting one. Safety and mental health permitting hold accountable the people who exhibit hateful rhetoric or speech. I know that doesn't always work. I know it's not always effective. But I think when it is possible, when somebody is at least halfway there to being receptive, it's important to have those difficult conversations. I always tell people, like, when it comes, because as an educator, I'm always willing to have those conversations. I'm thankful that I have a lot of bandwidth to do so. Do I always? No, I don't. I have not the last month until like now. But I always say, like, if you are doing any sort of educating, you're just opening the door for people. It's their choice whether they choose to walk through it, right? Ari says, I'll definitely collaborate on scripts. That's so fun. Waterchap says, I want to run for alderman, but I have no qualifications. Spread the word. Honestly, I mean, if we look at the qualifications of our legislative people, I think we sometimes are left wanting of more, and you probably do have the qualifications. Voting. Obviously, that's kind of super basic, but I want to talk about voting here because when people vote, obviously voting for general elections, state elections, but people often neglect local elections, city elections, school board elections, township elections. These spaces are often the first spaces where hate spreads because hate goes unchecked oftentimes in those spaces. So if definitely if you have time, tune into what's happening with your local elections. When it comes, Ari just says library board elections. That is another good example of one to check into, right? Because with all the book banning happening, all it takes is a library board to cave to an angry community member who doesn't want queer literature in the library, and bam, it's gone, right? Um, oh, and thank you for the like, Water Chap. I really appreciate it. Water Chap says, another good way to exercise on social media, you can click on do not recommend or not interested in hateful content. Yes, absolutely. If I see hateful content, I do that, but I also make sure that I block them. Blocking is such an effective means of just taking that entirely out of your feed, especially when you are exercising your own like boundaries and mental health. That actually is a fitting transition into my next one. Making sure that you like in order to show up, we have to make sure that we establish our own boundaries for what is too much for ourselves. We have to exercise our boundaries when it comes to like if we need to scale back, we know when to do that. For me, when I get to the point where like anxiety is like starting to make me feel icky, that's when I'm like, okay, this is my sign that I need to scale back. I've been experiencing that on and off since November, which is aside from like a couple of short videos, why I really have not had an extensive conversation like this. But definitely know your limits and don't be afraid to exercise them. Okay. The last one, check in with the people in your life. If you don't feel like engaging with politicians or holding accountable like hateful people, at least checking in with the people who are most vulnerable, that is so important. And it doesn't have to be invasive. It doesn't have to be like you being like a little bumblebee buzzing around somebody being like, hey, are you all right? Hey, you all right? I say that because sometimes I am that person. But just simply hey, how are you? I've been thinking about you. Tell me about what cool things you've been up to or projects you've been like simple conversations that are thoughtful, little things. Oh, this is going to be very cringe, but one of my favorite quotes from Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings / The Hobbit is, I find that the little things are what keeps darkness at bay. The day-to-day niceties, being kind to others. And I still feel that that is important, right? I feel that when we are kind to others and kind to ourselves, I think that we create a better world around us. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about showing up, I'm going to look here at Waterchup says there's a mayoral. There's elections that have been a mess in St. Louis. Yes. Lagiakra says one boundary I avoid like is personal stuff unless absolutely necessary. Totally get that. Yeah. Waterchap says it depends on what your friends and followers are. That influences your algorithm. Tolkien Talk. Yes, I've seen the new Rings of Power show. I'm assuming you're talking about Rings of Power. Or are you talking about War of the Rohirrim? I have not seen that yet. The last thing that I want to mention here, and then I might leave it open for a couple of questions if anybody wants to ask questions. When it comes to showing up, another reason why it's important to show up. When we kind of take ourselves out of that bystander space and put ourselves in the active engagement space, when other people see that, they are empowered to do the same. We've all heard the used terms of like love, like hate is a learned experience, love, kindness is learned. I think showing up and being present is learned as well. And that's what I really thought about last semester when I had that engagement the day after class, or the day during class after the election. I realized that in my small way of just simply showing up to school and being in that place, I was LGBTQ plus representation in that moment in some subtle way that someone found comforting, and that I found comforting. And I think if we can be that and strive to do that for other people, it'll spread and it'll continue to spread. And who knows, like even in doing so, we might show people who do buy into the hateful rhetoric, who perpetuate it. We might show them that there is another way, that we are in this community together, right? Ari says, love is the answer to hate, and I'm finding that seeking connection has been helping me. Yes. Yeah. Same here. Before I let you all go tonight, does anybody have any like questions? Just any questions? Let's take a deep breath together. My therapist has been teaching me new breathing techniques. This breathe in to lower anxiety. It feels really good. Sometimes we just gotta do that self-care, right? Gotta do that self-care. Ari says, any book recommendations? I've been slow at reading. The next book on my list to read I'm reading Red, White, and Royal Blue right now, which is an LGBTQ plus piece of fiction. There's a movie based on it, but the next thing I'm going to be reading are the novelizations or the novellas of Godzilla and Godzilla Reads Again. I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm surprised I've not had a chance to sit down and actually extensively read it yet. Ari, do you have any book recommendations? Or anybody else? Any questions? No, I love it. Lagiacris, I love it. I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I know tomorrow is going to be difficult. Do you want to know what I'm doing tomorrow? Tomorrow is MLK Day. Every MLK Day I go and I watch Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. I'm going to watch that. And then I am going to spend the entire day being creative. I'm going to read. I'm going to write. I'm going to journal. I'm going to water my plants. I'm going to make sure that I hydrate myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm fed. I'm going to try to get my daily steps in. My goal has been I've been trying to work out 4 times a week, but at the very minimum, I've been trying to get my daily steps in. Arby says, I want to read Red, White, and Royal Blue. Engine John loves those novels or novellas. I've heard they're really fun to read. And Ari says, I'm reading a book called Smoke, which is about fascism and hate manifest in physical form. That sounds interesting. Applicable, right? But yeah, my friends, we're in this together, okay? I know it may not feel that way, and it's okay to not feel that way. You know, it's okay to think that it doesn't feel that way, because the truth is sometimes we have rough moments, but we need to find ways to sustain the communities that we've created together. And if there's anything that we've taken away with TikTok, it's that sometimes communities can be fleeting, especially when people are in power. And I think we need to make sure that we represent ourselves in multiple different spaces. I just recently expanded to Blue Sky, for example. Like Blue Sky is decentralized social media, and I've loved it so much. In fact, I've been considering, of course, aside from being active here on YouTube and maybe like Instagram, I've been wanting to mostly just focus on Blue Sky. If you've not been on Blue Sky yet, I think it is a very good social media option that gives you a lot of control over what you see in your own feed. Merlin says, my chickens always calm me. Yes, my cats always calm me, and my plants. Chaos says, will you be more active over in Kaiju Galaxy? I really miss everyone. I miss everyone over there too. I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to be a little bit more active over there and try to get everybody to return. Social media has just completely gutted message boards, unfortunately. Arpy says, I have therapy tomorrow and I've been talking to my therapist about this. That's important. That's good. Henshin, watched any good movies? I think the most recent movie I've watched is probably Nosferatu. Stunning piece of Gothic cinema. Love it so much. Gaming recommendations. I know I'm hyped for 2 games, Monster Hunter Wilds and Monster Prom 4 MonsterCon. I will look into those. Those sound super interesting. For me, the game that has been my escape lately has been Stardew Valley. Being able to just go to my farm and just like, so Stardew, Chaos, I'll get to your comment in just a second. I accidentally clicked too quickly. Stardew Valley is so relaxing. It's the music, it's the aesthetic, I love gardening, so like just sitting there and just gardening, I'm like, oh, it feels so good to farm. Fight monsters once in a while. It's so fun to like fish and not have to do fishing in real life, because I'm not a fan of that in real life. But no, if you've never played Stardew Valley, it's kind of like Animal Crossing, but a little bit more simplistic, I would say. Let's see. Chaos says, I'm glad to hear that. I'm going to finally start the trilogy I started back in. Yes, start that, please. Or update the trilogy. Lagiakris, how did you enjoy Nosferatu? Animal Crossing is a good way to unwind. My issue with Animal Crossing is I don't like the timing dynamic of it. I like in Stardew Valley where like it literally gives you like a day to operate in, and then it goes to the next day and the next day and the next day. RP says, have you seen North Sea, Texas? It's a foreign. I have not. I'll have to check that out. I will have to check that out. Shows I've been watching. I've been watching the recent season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Drag Race is kind of like my escape too. Like, it's just, if I need to immerse myself in LGBTQ plus experiences, it's very comforting for me, especially the older seasons. Sometimes I will go back to 3 times. I need to go back and watch it again. I need to take my fiance to go watch it because he's been wanting to watch it too. But would you guys like me to do streams more often? I know RP said that RP wants me to do streams more often. I can definitely do streams more often. I don't know if I'm going to do them like every week, but like every once in a while, I think I can tune in and do a stream. Henshin asks, any tokusatsu kaiju media you want to watch this year? I want to watch Atragon. I have not seen that yet. That is something that's always been on my list, but I've never really sat down to watch it. And as a kaiju fan, I kind of feel ashamed for not having watched it yet. So it's not a film, but I am working on a kaiju themed set of poems and a kaiju themed set of short stories featuring original kaiju. I'm pretty excited about that. So I feel the need to appeal to my wide audience that loves kaiju. And I've had so many kaiju stories in my head since I was a kid that they just need to happen. RP wants to see RuPaul's Drag Race. Definitely. Scott would love to see more streams. Ari says yes as well. Chaos says, I had to watch Nosferatu back in college. It's a classic. And I just like most horror movies. Yeah. Yeah, there are certain aspects of it that could get a little dicey, right? But ultimately, I did enjoy it. Well, I did not think I'd stream for an hour, but we had some good conversation, my friends. Do the best you can to perform self-care, and do the best you can to show up in what way you're able during these uncertain times. Know that I love you and that I'm always here for you. And we'll talk soon. All right. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your night. Mwah.